Good afternoon. What is a cool, damp, but clear day? It is Friday, the 14th of January. I am back in the reading nook with cat who is not ours, a nice hot cup of tea, and a box or two to open and dig into. But I'm going to go into this little package here. Already opened it and pulled out a couple of things. This is from Igloo Tree, or rather I pulled out one thing. So I'm going to unwrap this again, all very carefully. And first time I unwrapped this, I pulled out a copy of Planar Compass issue 1. The next thing, let's have a look. There's something else in here. It is the Undercroft, and this is issue number 14. So this is a long-running fanzine, which is kind of a bit of a hiatus over the last couple of years. There's only been it's slowed down. This is published by the Melsonian Arts Council and is really the starting point. If you go back to issue 1, that's really where the Melsonian Arts Council got its start. I've reviewed all the issues up to issue 13 as part of my fanzine focus series. So it used to be a mainstay. Because there are a few issues now, I've caught up and I review it when an issue comes out. So let's have a look. So originally, it was a fanzine really written with Lamentations of the Flame Princess weird fantasy roleplay in mind. But it's really evolved a bit away from that. So it has actually had content for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and also Old School Essentials. So it kind of wavers between the two. So let's have a look. Inside, what have we got? We've got 3, so we've only got 3 articles in here. That's fine. I mean, it gives a bit of space. We've got it runs to 28 pages. Fanzines are always fun to basically review and talk about because they're little things. They've got usually have lots of little articles in there, and really it's a space for authors to be inventive, to bring their own content to publication. Without and really do it on a semi-professional scale. Now these days fanzines have got more and more professional, certainly more professional than some of those in the 70s, but that's fine. They're no longer really necessarily basically amateur-based publications. So we open up here. We've got Gun. This is the first art for the first article. And this is basically the gun occupies a strange place in role-playing games. It's an object we understand just enough to have very strong ideas of how it should be and shouldn't be portrayed. Had they been around when the saber was still common, then we'd have books dedicated to the portrayal of swords in games and how different and special they are compared to less nuanced killing sticks. So it offers up here some guidelines in terms of the rules. So universal gun rules, and then it looks at the pistol and the arquebus, and the arquebus are rock. So the general guidelines and the 3 types of black powder weapon it's covering there. And then we get over the side, we have more musket, petronel, fire lance, which is basically a gun polearm, the hand culverine, the key gun, and the mace gun. So we've got an actual illustration of the mace gun. I don't know what a key gun is. It says it's opening doors is a dangerous business. You never know what's on the other side, or worse, you do. So for the justly paranoid doorman, invented a key gun, a working key with an attached firearm, or small firearm with an attached key, eye of the beholder, and so on. The simplest and most subtle key gun would be a hollowed out key with a small hole in the top, allowing the user to light the gunpowder with a cigar butt or other convenient igniter. Cannot be used as a melee weapon, they're too small. So essentially it's almost like a pocket pistol that doubles as your door key. Interesting. We get a bit further onwards where technology and engineering advances. So we have the air rifle. which is really essentially the first modern near silent firearm, famously depicted in The Return of Sherlock Holmes, the short story by Arthur Conan Doyle, and deployed by Colonel Sebastian Moran, infamously the number 2 to Professor Moriarty. Then we have things like the sword gun, axe gun, shield gun, and so on. Before we go on to firing mechanisms and that's talking about the match lock and the wheel lock, flint lock, and so on. And we've got other things like the bayonet, rifle barrels, multiple barrels, and such. In general, in sort of most fantasy settings, you don't get firearms. Basically, in the default setting. When you get into the Renaissance and a bit further on, some settings do introduce them. You get further on where you get up to sort of like the 16th and 17th centuries, then they're part of the setting. And the other thing is, in a lot of cases, if you have a piratical setting, then you typically do have firearms. And here we have another couple of things like the revolver and the Lorenzoni repeating firearm and things like that. A bit of oddities, but again, adding a bit more detail. So this is a nicely comprehensive article. And then we have an adventure, Gold from the Ceiling, essentially a big bright light streaks from the sky. And you've all heard of the stories about stones from the sky that are made with precious metals and decide that sky rock belongs to you. You walk faster towards the town with a muddy spring in your step. And essentially, here's what happens if you find space rock in your fantasy setting. Things falling to earth is kind of like an interesting story idea, because what has fallen? Is it actually valuable? Is it dangerous? Is it inert? Who wants it and why? That sort of thing. So we have merchant encounters and strange signs and bit of indication of what might be located in the town. And here perhaps is what might have fallen to earth, or fallen to the earth, because it's not so the earth. So it might actually be a hideous creature from another world. And here you kind of think, okay, that's interesting, and that would, depending upon essentially what happens, the player character might take advantage of the space rock that fell and track it back to wherever it came from, and you might have a situation akin to the High Crusade by Paul Anderson, where crusaders board the alien spaceship and go off and conquer the alien worlds and so on, and form their own nation. And here we've got a random table of ancient escape pod contents, so here's an indication of what's going on. And then wandering things or threads and patches is tables for basic things about travellers. What is a traveller but his past? Where can they hope to travel but back into it? And this is basic detailing people that the player characters can encounter on the road, in the pub or tavern, and so on. So we've got an custom NPCs. So Payam Sadiq, bearer of the sacred tranquil toad, or Omid Bayat, travelling grand battledore master. And the table for their current disposition. So you've got a selection of NPCs to round out the issue. And these get a bit weird, like Zara and Modric, Keeper of the Small Flames, or Marduk, White Ape Enumerator. Complete with illustration. And this pushes it into the weird end of fantasy. That's no bad thing. Of course, you don't necessarily have to use that character, but these sort of thing works in any kind of fantasy game that you want to. We've got more NPCs here. Essentially just rounding out the issue. So lots of things in here. Just 3 good articles which you can bring to your game, whether or not you want firearms or some new NPCs or a strange encounter with something from the stars. This is the Undercroft issue 14. This will do. I will do a review of this in due course as part of the Fanzine Focus series, which I do every time we've got a bank holiday. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching another unboxing in the Nook. If you've enjoyed this, please do click on the like button down below. And if you have any comments or feedback, I appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings here, where you will see me with a package and a book or a game which I will pull out and talk about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a cat who is not ours and a nice hot cup of tea, then please hit that subscribe button. Once again, thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook, and I will be back again soon with another book and a package to unbox. Thanks again for watching. We'll be back again soon. Bye.